With the FX30 coming out recently, a lot of people might be wondering which is a better camera, the Sony A7 IV or the Sony FX30. Well, I've been using the Sony A7 IV since early 2022, and I genuinely enjoy using this camera. In fact, I love using this camera. It's changed the way I do film. But there is one fatal flaw with the Sony A7 IV that's causing me to actually consider selling it and switching fully over to Canon at this point. And we're definitely going to get to that in this full long-term review of the Sony A7 IV. Right off the bat, I do want to say that this is not going to be a technical review. That's already been done by people like Gerald Undone, and I don't really want to redo that. I think a lot of people know about the specs, and at this point, I think it's more important for me to just talk about what this camera can do and what I've been able to do with it after owning it since early 2022. The Sony A7 IV is the ideal hybrid camera for those that want to do photography and also want to get into filmmaking. I would say that it is the best in the middle hybrid camera out of any other option or any other brand. In fact, the video quality on the Sony A7 IV can easily pass to the uninitiated, as footage also coming from the A7S III or even any of the cinema line cameras like the FX6. A lot of people won't be able to tell the difference in quality between this, which is again a hybrid camera, and those more expensive cameras. The videos can look perfect straight out of camera, especially if you nail all of your settings, and that's definitely really important for this video. As an upgrade from the Sony A7 III, it has 10-bit 422, which gives you more capabilities in your video editing and color grading to stretch the image and the colors a lot more than you would have with the Sony A7 III. The Sony A7 IV also has S-Cinetone, which was developed in the Sony Venice cameras, I believe, and means that you can get a really good image quality straight out of camera. I've been using it a lot since I bought this camera, but I've also kind of settled on no picture profile as my best option for filming if I'm doing strictly YouTube videos and not major projects. And of course, you get all of the other major picture profiles such as Cine or HLG, or even everybody's favorite S-Log3, which also again utilizes the 10-bit image sensor in the camera, which means that you can get a better image when S-Log. That's probably going to be the best looking images that you can get out of this camera, but you will need some experience in color grading. The A7 IV also has 4K 60 and doesn't have 4K 120, which a lot of people think is a major issue. But for me personally, after using this camera for as long as I have, I can kind of say that I don't really need the 4K 120. And in fact, I think of the 4K 60 cropped as a feature. And what I mean is that I'm able to really push in and get a closer image to some shots and without a quality loss, and everything just looks a little bit more sharper. A lot of times if you want to do like product videos, you're gonna get a lens that can get really close, but with this it turns whatever lens that you're using into a closer lens. If you are somebody that's gonna need 4K 120, this is not gonna be the camera for you. And it does have 120 frames, but that's gonna be at full HD 1080p, so that means that it's not going to look the best, although I found in some settings it really does look quite good and usable, but in other settings it looks horrible. If you look at the leaves on the trees and overall this image in general, you'll just see it's kind of fuzzy compared to like the 4K version of it. Another thing that I've really enjoyed with this camera is the autofocus. This is something that I've been using non-stop, and I almost never use manual focus. I typically use the camera for filming my YouTube videos, and I've done some project work on it and a wedding. I've been able to really run and gun rely on that autofocus, which is really able to really detect the subject's face or even their eye at all times. One thing I don't want to forget about, and I want to make sure that I mention in this, is the flip out screen on this camera. So if you are watching this video because you're thinking about upgrading from the A7 III, and maybe you use it for filming your own content or other things like low angle shots, you're gonna really enjoy the benefit of having the flip out screen. So it has a fully rotatable flip out screen, definitely able to use it in low angle shots and just really be more dynamic with the camera with this flip out screen. But for me personally, what I just love about it the most is, again, being able to just straight up film myself. Because I'm a solo shooter, I'm not gonna have anyone else monitoring the colors and the audio, so I need to be able to see those settings, and it's been a huge relief. Speaking about the body and what this camera offers outside of the lens and the colors and all that, is that they also offer a lot of custom buttons, meaning that you can really personalize your camera and reduce the production time that it takes to do certain things because you can just press a shortcut. Also, one thing that this camera has that a lot of the other cameras do not have is the custom settings button at the top. We can switch between photo mode, video mode, and S&Q mode, meaning that if you're on the go, running and gunning, like I said, or just doing anything, you're just shooting one of these videos, you can easily switch from 4K 24 frames per second to 4K 60 without doing much. You just have to literally switch the dial and you're ready to shoot. And now we get to the photo capabilities of this camera. This camera has a 33 megapixel sensor that's able to really capture a lot of data in the image and giving you the ability to really edit it and just capture more in the photo. Images coming out of this camera honestly look really good, but I gotta say it's not really that crazy of an upgrade compared to like the Sony A7 III. With that said though, if you're deciding between this camera and something like the Sony A7S III or even the FX30, this is definitely gonna be the better camera for photography shooters over any of those other cameras just because of the 33 megapixel sensor. And on top of that, if you really want to crop into an image, you're not going to lose a lot of quality because the image files are so big, there's so much data, and you're definitely going to be able to crop in and really change the photo that you took. Finally, we've gotten to the point where I can actually talk about the major flaw with this camera that's making me lean towards selling this camera, although I like it so much. So since using this camera, since I picked it up in March, I've noticed orange hues and overall warm tones in the images. A lot of times when I'm shooting with this camera, I've just noticed that either my skin looks very orange, everything in the frame overall is leaning towards the warm side. And I tried every single thing to fix it. But before I talk about what I've tried, let's show you how it looks. So right now I'm just gonna put the camera to auto white balance right now. And as you can see, I look like an Oompa Loompa. Everything is super orange. This is what the camera determines to be the perfect white balance based on the image that it's looking at. Now what I have here is the Sony ZV-1, which costs a fraction of the Sony A7 IV. And as you can see by these comparison images, the ZV-1 gets the auto white balance a lot better than the Sony A7 IV. And again, it costs a lot less money. It's not as new and it doesn't have the same sensor as the one in the Sony A7 IV. So to fix this issue, I've tried a couple things. I've used custom white balance with white or gray cards. I've tried any of the other presets such as daylight mode or shade or anything like that. I've tried them all, and trust me, everything just looks very orange. I've also, believe it or not, sent this camera in for repair by Sony, and nothing has changed. The images are still orange. All of the tools that a lot of people would use to get the white balance perfect and the colors perfect, I don't really have access to them anymore because everything is just off. So I don't know what to do. At this point, it is making me lean towards selling it. Although, again, as you're seeing, I can still get some really decent quality images. In my mind, I know how much work I'm putting into fixing them, but also I just know that it's still not perfect. It's still a little bit warm for me, and I just don't know what to do at this point. I should end that point with saying that although this is a major issue for me, I think this is very limited and specific to my camera, and it's a problem that I'm having, and I don't really see this problem happening with any other creators. I've asked around, and a lot of people say that they sometimes even use auto white balance and it looks fine. So I just don't know what the hell it is, if it's my specific skin tone that Sony's not prepared for. I really don't know. A little bit of other minor grievances that I have. There is a little bit of rolling shutter, but for me personally, not that much of a problem considering I use this camera on a tripod most of the time, or I use it on a gimbal and I'm not really vlogging or any crazy motion or swinging with the camera. I noticed that the battery depletes extremely fast. I could shoot footage and I noticed it's probably gonna be at like 70%. I'll put it in my camera bag. I definitely turned it off. I turned it back on and it's at like 30%. I don't know what it is. Oh yeah, and a lot of people have reported having issues with the camera becoming overheated. I just changed the settings to high and I've never had that problem. I've also just never experienced it at all. I did shoot in summer days and again, it never overheated on me, so that's a good thing, but a lot of people would list this as a problem. But yeah, that's what I think about the Sony A7 IV. Although I think it's one of the best cameras, I am again leaning towards selling it just because of this problem, but I am willing to hear out you and your thoughts on the Sony A7 IV, or if you have any tips to fixing this issue, please, I'm begging you, let me know in the comments down below. If you liked my content, make sure to subscribe. This is like my first camera video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.